Hello, and welcome to Intern Interviews. Today I'm here with Rishi, and Intern Interviews will be focusing on talking to some of those more experienced alum about their internship experience and how they prepared. So, hello Rishi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks Bailey. My name is Rishi Pandya. I am one of the co-presidents of BIS for this year, and I also completed a summer internship at Jefferies last summer in their investment banking division.
So Rishi, I think just to kick off, what is investment banking?
Okay, so investment banking, effectively investment banks act as an advisor. They help companies where they're trying to either raise capital, so that can be either through raising debt through the debt markets, raising equity through capital raisings, IPOs, etc., or through M&A processes. So when a firm wants to buy another company, or when a company wants to sell itself to another company, they need an advisor to help them through that process. The investment banks are the expert advisors, and they help the company get the most amount of value. So if a company's trying to sell themselves, the investment bank's job would be to tell the equity story such that the buyers of the company recognize the value of the company, which ultimately would create the most value for shareholders. When raising debt, raising equity, again, it's about creating the most amount of value for these companies for the minimum cost, ideally.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rishi.
Yeah, I think a good kind of a good analogy of how investment banks work is when trying to sell high quality or exclusive clothing, you sometimes have a seller who has a piece of clothing who doesn't quite understand the market. They might know that their piece of clothing has value, but they don't have the connections to realize that value.
Yeah.
The investment bank is kind of the middleman who...
It's the intermediary.
Yeah, who has the knowledge of the industry, who has the knowledge of people who might want to buy this item of clothing, and then they kind of connect buyer and seller together to make sure that the seller gets the most amount of value for their money.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice
way to sum it up.
Yeah, I was quite proud of that analogy actually.
Nice. And just before your summer internship, how was it that you went and clued yourself up about the industry and then eventually prepared yourself for that job role that you were going to be doing?
Yeah, so my first kind of finance experience was working at a private equity firm. I did a week work experience, and I kind of just fell in love with the industry. I really like the kind of fast-paced nature of, finance. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really know what I was talking about, or didn't know much about the industry at the time, but that kind of hint of and taste of finance kind of really interested me. And then as I looked a bit more into what potential paths I could do, some of which was helped by coming to BIS events, I thought that investment banking really appealed to me. And then I did quite a lot of applications in first year.
Yeah.
I was a part of BIS in the analyst programs, and then I got a spring week at Jefferies, converted that to a summer internship, and I've converted that to a full-time role starting in August.
So Rishi, what would you say generally is the sort of daily functions within the investment bank from an analyst point of view?
Yeah, so as an analyst, you're working a lot with Excel and PowerPoint. You're creating pitch decks for your clients, and so to create these, you do a lot of modelling. You look into the statements, the financial statements of the company. You look at their revenues and profits, and you kind of put them into a model to find out future values, which are good technical skills to know about, which you should learn about. But also you do a lot of kind of market research. You look at comparables. You look at similar companies. You look at future growth opportunities. You look at future growth industries within the industry itself. So, what are the up and coming sectors, and what can companies look for if they want to, grow in the future?
What do you think are some of the skills required to make you a good fit for the role, and how can you enhance those skills pre-internship so that you maximise your experience?
Yeah, so I think that you learn most of the skills you need on the job. There are lots of things you can do beforehand, so you can brush up on Excel skills. knowing your shortcuts, or Excel and PowerPoint. Knowing your shortcuts in PowerPoint and Excel can really help speed your work up.
Right. Okay.
You're often doing a lot of work and a lot of hours, and well, the better you are at Excel and PowerPoint, the quicker you do it, and then the more work you can do. So you look like a better intern, or you are obviously a better analyst as well if you can do more work. Knowing about the sector as a whole is quite important. Reading up on general financial news is helpful to get a kind of a broader kind of idea of what's happening in the industry. Learning about the macro environment and interest rates and how that might affect deal flow, etc. If you know what team you're going into, then it's helpful to know as much as you can about the team. If you know accounting, that's also very helpful because a lot of what you do is accounting work. But again, you learn the vast majority on the actual job. So having a background, base level of knowledge is great, and then you kind of just it ramps up to a different level once you start working.
How did you ensure that you were involved while on the summer internship? How did you get involved with tasks, break them down, and use that to impress and let them know that you were a good intern?
Yeah, so I think that my team were great in that they were very clear on what my task was, and they were very supportive throughout.
Yeah.
The thing which I thought was the very best thing is that I didn't feel afraid to ask questions at all.
Right, okay.
Whenever I had an issue, I never kind of spent too long kind of worrying about, I don't feel comfortable asking a question, I don't want to seem like I don't know anything. I felt very comfortable just to kind of send a message straight away, and the team were always really helpful and happy to help me. In terms of the tasks themselves, it's often quite self-explanatory what you need to do. You're often working on a slide,
right, okay.
and the instructions have kind of been given to you by those further up the chain. But you obviously have your own kind of thoughts, and if you think there are any issues and if you think there are things to change, then you're kind of encouraged to say something.
Right,
and I think that, again, something that I thought was really nice was that I felt able to say things when I thought they weren't right, or when I had an opinion, I didn't feel like I had to kind of restrict my opinion. I could say my opinion, which again, often people probably don't realise that they can do that.
Right, okay, yeah.
But in terms of proving or showing that I was hopefully good, I tried to do everything to the best of my ability. And even on some of the kind of more simple, easier tasks, it's very easy to kind of have a slightly nonchalant attitude towards it.
Right, okay, yeah.
But you need to make sure that you do everything to the best of your ability, because then that also proves to the team that
you're able to handle the workload and the sort of stress that comes with the job as well.
Yeah, and not even just the stress, but just like being able to do your job well. When you join a bank or any team, they don't know you from Adam, you know what I mean? And also, if you mess up, then you have the potential to make their job
a lot more difficult
because they have to redo things that you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so initially you don't get as complicated work just because you need to prove you can do the easy stuff before they kind of give you more responsibility and let you do the more difficult, more interesting, more substantial things.
Yeah. So just to sum up there, Rishi, would you say that the most important things for impressing and kind of leading into that convertibility and securing that grad role is to make sure that you're not afraid to ask questions, get involved, talk to those people around you, talk to your team, and actually be a face that people recognise and can get on with, and also to ensure that everything you do is with 100% effort.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that hard work, that there's no kind of
substitute.
There's no substitute at all. If you put in your 100% effort, then hopefully they recognise it. And you have to understand that you're there for one reason. You're there to, contribute to the team, but ultimately on a personal level, you want to secure the grad role. And so you need to make sure that everything you do is focused on that.
Yeah.
So although it's great to be in that new environment, you're with a whole bunch of great interns as well, and you just need to be focused on the thing that you want to kind of achieve out of it, which is getting the grad role.
Yeah.
So make friends,
Be
do
somebody
all of that,
people can get on with.
but make sure that your work always
make
comes
sure you're
first.
always,
100% first. Yeah.
So, Rishi, I think leading on to conversion slightly more, how does the process work, both after spring and after summer?
Yeah.
And what sort of things are those companies looking for? Say, Jefferies, for example, for you. What does a Jefferies IB recruiter look for when you're actually in that interview? How do you convert?
Yeah, so I think for the summer internship, you don't have a specific interview, but the internship is your interview. It's a 9 or 10 week long interview, and
Right, okay.
you have to demonstrate throughout that you're the right candidate.
Right, okay,
And
okay.
it's not about how much you know at the start, but it's about your trajectory. It's about your trajectory of how much you improved throughout your time. It's how easily you were able to grasp concepts and how able you were to take on more work
And
throughout
dictate
the
your
time.
time while also being under that constraint of work days.
Yeah, exactly. And also, kind of leading on to that, it's your professional kind of, your professional ability, I guess is kind of a way to put it.
Mhm.
It's how well you're able to communicate with the team. One thing I'd really recommend is over communication. As soon as you get an email telling you about a task, send an email back confirming receipt straight away.
Yeah.
When you kind of progress through the internship, you're often given multiple tasks at the same time. Managing time is difficult but really important. And again, over communication comes into that, because if you're able to, well, if you're not able to, if you tell your team what you have on, then they're able to manage their expectations of you. Although you might want to spend the entire time saying, yes, 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 I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, there's the risk that you end up taking on too much work, and as a result, one piece of work might suffer. And you're much better off telling them early that I've got too much work than taking everything on, not communicating that, and then ending up with shitty pieces of work.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of impressing as an intern, it's just making sure that professional portfolio with skills like organisation, those soft skills like communication, being a warm face, somebody people can rely on, and also making sure you have that hard work element are the three things that are really going to impress and that people will notice to ensure that you go and secure that grad role.
I think so. And positivity as well. I think that when you're in the working environment, you're spending a lot of time with the people around you and the people you're working with.
Yeah.
And you don't want someone that's constantly negative complaining.
Of course,
you want someone that's
has an ethos that can bring up those around them as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think one person smiling, more likely to make another person smile. One person complaining can have it can make the work environment not fun to be in or not enjoyable to be in, which can have a negative effect on work.
Thank you, Rishi. So if you could just relay your mind back to that time you did your spring internship, how does the assessment criteria and conversion process differ from that of the summer?
Well, I think the main thing is that you only have 3-4 days to
impress and get to know the team.
And also you're not really
doing
as
the job.
an insight. Most of it was hearing from different members of Jefferies and hearing about their functions and finding out what they do on a day-to-day kind of basis. We had some interviews on the final day, and again, those were just general interviews that you would kind of do with when doing applications, but had a bit more focus on what we'd learned over the past few days.
Yeah.
And we also had a kind of intern presentation, which we had to prepare during the spring week in the evenings as a team. I couldn't say too much about what they're looking for. I think it's probably similar to the general applications.
Okay.
They're looking for someone with a keen interest in the business division that they're applying for.
Yeah.
Someone who's done their research into Jefferies, someone who's kind of understood the culture from the past few days. But
someone
again,
who's able to organise things and present them in a manner that's coherent and concise.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's very similar to a general interview.
Yeah.
the summer internship is where it differs, because then they're looking at your actual
functionality
work
within
output.
the role. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your output, your fit within the teams, and again, your kind of growth trajectory.
So then, in terms of how that conversion process differs, is it sort of a fast track to an AC for the role as opposed to being given a contract for a grad role? Is it sort of a getting fast tracked to an interview type stage?
Again, it depends on the firm. So Jefferies, after my spring week, we had the interviews as part of the spring week, and then I got a summer internship role following that.
Yeah.
The summer internship, at the end of the internship, again, they gave us an offer of a graduate role or not. But some spring weeks will give you a fast track to an assessment centre, so you have to do another set of applications, or not applications, another set of interviews after.
Okay.
Some spring weeks will not have any fast track, but again, it's great to have that experience on your CV.
Yeah.
So it really differs from firm to firm.
What advice would you give to somebody who, say, doesn't have that prior experience when it comes to applications?
I think that you need to look beyond the traditional big companies. The thing with the finance industry is that it is massive, and
super competitive as well.
It's very competitive, and
Yeah.
especially the big names. The global multinational investment banks, they will have a serious number of applicants for a very limited number of places. And you want to try and differentiate yourself as much beforehand, so you want to do online courses, you want to speak to people within the industry. But I think a lot of people get too fixated on going to one of the kind of big names. If you're interested in finance, there are a lot of finance roles which you can learn from, which will help you progress your career. And they might not be the traditional names you've heard of, but you do need to do a bit of extra research. You need to look into your local area, find out what kind of smaller banks or smaller accountancy firms, what's around.
Yeah.
And you want to send out cold LinkedIn messages to those firms with maybe 10, 15 people. Send a message, set up a coffee if you can, and you never know what will come from that. But the thing is, it's a tough kind of cycle of you need experience, you get more experience.
Yeah.
But it's about getting your foot in the door.
I think that's super applicable.
Yeah.
I think that's a great message. It's that you can't expect to run before you even walk type thing. You need to go out, be proactive, look at sending those cold emails and try and garner a bit of small experience that you can leverage when it comes to interviewing and then eventually interning at those big names.
Yeah, but also you can learn more sometimes at a smaller place, because you get more responsibility and you get to cover more than you might do at a massive bureaucratic firm. So I think there are definitely benefits to joining smaller firms. I think there's a massive general consensus or belief that unless you go to one of the prestigious firms, you're not good. But I think that's complete rubbish.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting into anything is impressive, and you can learn so much from getting into just a smaller place, and it could actually lead to a potentially more exciting career path.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Rishi. I think just to kind of summarise and end off as a closing note, what would you say would be a key piece of advice that you'd have given yourself pre-summer or pre-spring internship to better prepare you for what you've eventually gone and done now?
I think, to be honest, it'd just be trust the process. I think that I might have, I had a lot of pressure on myself to impress and to get this internship, whatever. I think just trust in your own ability and recognize that even if you might not be going in a path that you initially wanted to, it's going to work out regardless. And we're all very young still, and there's no need at 20 to be thinking that my life plans are going to be, not as good because I haven't done X, Y, or Z. I think, just live life, and it will always work out.